If you're scheduled for a mental health CMP exam, the VA changed something today that you absolutely need to understand before you walk in. I'm Dr. Sharma, physician, board certified psychiatrist, and Air Force veteran. This update was released today, January 12th, 2026, so it's hot off the presses, and the VA made an important change to its internal policy regarding who is qualified to perform mental health CMP exams. This change affects both initial psychological exams and review psychological exams. And while parts of this update are fairly normal, reasonable, appropriate, there's one section in particular that veterans really need to understand because it can directly impact your disability ratings. So we're going to pull up the policy itself and I'll walk you through exactly what changed and why it matters. So this policy lays out who the VA considers qualified to perform mental health CMP exams. Now, I keep everything on dark mode. I hope that's okay with you guys. And as you can see here, the change date is January 12th, 2026. I'm actually just going to scroll down to where the highlighted portion is here. All right, so let's start with initial psychological exams. So these are first-time claims or initial evaluations for mental health conditions. And first up, we have board certified or board eligible psychiatrist. So this is a medical doctor who completed medical school and became a physician first, and then did residency training specifically in psychiatry. This represents the highest level of formal medical training in mental health because you do 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and 4 years of psychiatry residency. Next up, we have licensed doctorate level psychologists. So typically these are PhD or PsyD psychologists who have completed a doctoral program, extensive supervised clinical training, and they are fully licensed. Next up, we have non-licensed doctorate level psychologists working towards licensure. So basically these are psychologists in training, right? And then we have psychiatry residents, meaning physicians training to become psychiatrists, usually working in hospitals or clinics under an attending psychiatrist who is a fully trained and licensed psychiatrist. Then we have VA psychology interns or residents completing doctoral training, also psychologists in training just at an earlier stage. So overall, for initial psych exams, this framework is pretty reasonable and it lines up with what's needed to diagnose psychiatric conditions for service connection. Now, an important piece here is under close supervision. So that supervision means that the fully licensed psychiatrist or psychologist has to actually see the veteran. So not just review notes afterward. They have to actually discuss the case with the trainee as well and then co-sign the evaluation. So it can't be, run the case by me real quick and move on. That's not going to work. Now, I do want to point out something from real world experience. So sometimes hospitals and clinic schedules are extremely busy and proper supervision isn't always cleanly built into the attending schedule. That doesn't mean it never happens, but I have seen situations where supervision gets rushed. So that's something that veterans should be aware of and pay attention to. Now, let's go back to the policy. The review exam part. This is usually ordered when the VA is reassessing an existing condition. So maybe you applied for an increase, they're evaluating the severity, or they're considering a reduction or continuation of a rating. In other words, this exam can change your monthly compensation for the rating you already have connected to service. So for review psychological exams, the VA allows obviously anyone already qualified to do the initial exam. So everybody from the top section that we covered, then a licensed clinical social worker under close supervision. So again, that's under close supervision by a licensed and board certified psychiatrist or a doctorate level psychologist. And then the third part is a nurse practitioner, clinical nurse specialist, or physician assistant, provided they're under close supervision, again, by a psychiatrist or psychologist, and clinically privileged by the VHA to perform CMP psychological exams. Now, I want to be very clear here. I have worked with exceptional nurses, nurse practitioners, clinical nurse specialists, physician's assistants in hospitals and clinics, places like Johns Hopkins where I trained and other major medical centers. They do outstanding work and provide excellent care. This is not a blanket criticism of these professions. I know veterans who are nurse practitioners. I love you guys. It's not about that. However, The CMP exam environment is very different from routine clinical care. And over the years, I've gotten a lot of feedback from a huge group of veterans who've told me that when their mental health exams are conducted by mid level practitioners, meaning nurse practitioners or PAs, the evaluations can sometimes feel rushed, superficial, or overly driven by checkboxes. Again, this does not apply to everyone, and this is very much in the CMP examination process. So it is the people being hired by the third party contractors. Again, this does not apply to everyone. There are excellent clinicians at every level. And to be fair, rushed exams can even happen with psychologists and psychiatrists in the CMP system. Nobody is immune. But here's the core concern, right? A review psychological exam can change or even reduce a veteran's rating, sometimes pretty dramatically. Because of that, the examiner experience and depth of training really matters because that relates to the probative value of the evaluation or the credibility of the evaluation. Let's put some numbers on this just to make it more quantifiable. So, a psychiatrist completes 4 years of medical school and then 4 years of psychiatry residency. By the time they finish training, they've accumulated roughly, and this is a big range because the training varies, roughly 12,000 to 16,000 supervised clinical hours. That is significant. That's a lot of training. That's in the medical school environment with rotations and then in residency. In contrast, a nurse practitioner typically completes a master's degree in nursing and then formal clinical training during NP school, which usually totals around 500 to 1,000 supervised clinical hours. That's a big difference in training models. We're just looking at it from a quantifiable point of view. Now, from a systems perspective, you can also understand why organizations hire nurse practitioners. Their salaries are lower and they help address staffing shortages because there's not enough psychiatrists, there's not enough psychologists, or maybe the system is trying to save money. That's a reality of modern healthcare. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. But you might say, but doc, they're still under supervision. And that's true. You're right. But remember what we talked about earlier. Supervision has to actually happen and it has to be thorough. When I've supervised mid-level practitioners myself, a lot of the time when I was in the hospital or in the clinic, that supervision was not formally built into my schedule, which made the process hectic. It added to my workload. And in the CMP exam setting, that kind of rushed supervision can have real consequences for veterans. So, as a veteran, you need to understand that the close supervision is not optional, it is required. So, if you're assigned a mid level examiner or a psychologist in training or a psychiatrist in training, it's completely reasonable to make sure that supervision actually occurred. Now, you might be saying that's tough to do, right? It's tough for the veteran to dictate during the process. I'm not saying you have to confront people. You can ask questions. You can ask, hey, are you going to be working with a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Are they going to see me as well? And whatever they give you as the answer is what they give you, but you can ask that question. But importantly, what should veterans take away from all of this? And how can you prepare, right? So, one, know what type of exam you're being scheduled for. Is it an initial exam or a review exam? I know that sounds like it should be obvious, but it's not always the case. You want to make sure you're scheduled for the right exam. Number two, know who your examiner is. You're allowed to know their credentials. And the CMP exam notice typically lists the practitioner, and you can also look them up yourself. They usually have their credentials on there with their NPI number. Number three, document your experience. So if an exam feels rushed or incomplete, write it down. If a mid-level examiner conducts the exam and there's no evidence of close supervision by a psychologist or psychiatrist, document that too. Same thing with a psychiatry resident or a psychology intern, whoever it is. If there's not close supervision, you want to document that too. And finally, submit those concerns when it's appropriate. So if you find that there are multiple red flags with your process, you can submit that information as a part of your claim or later through a supplemental claim or a higher level review if you have to get to that point. My goal with this video is not to attack any profession. Okay, that's the last thing I want to do. This is about recognizing that mental health CMP exams carry huge consequences for veterans' lives. Experience, supervision, and depth of training matter, especially when the outcome affects compensation, medical care, and long term stability. By the way, I came across this topic from the CivDiv. If you're not subscribed to him, you need to be subscribed to him. I learn about everything regarding VA changes from his channel. So thank you to him for the shout out from his channel and as well as giving me the idea for this video. I hope this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, you might like the video I did on CMP exam red flags. Click over here to check it out. Also, click over here to subscribe if you haven't already done so. As always, I want to thank you for spending time out of your day listening to me. I appreciate all the support. See you next time. This is Dr. Sharma signing off.